Well, good morning. It is Saturday morning, November 2nd. So the Celtic New Year and Day of the Dead was yesterday. And today I want to talk to you about resting. I mean, this will end up somewhere in my course, but I thought I'd do this live for now just for the fun of it because the hustle culture is toxic. Human beings and you know where you see that across a couple. I'll mention two. You see it in the work where yeah, you can do this, you can do that, and you can hustle all day long, and you should hustle all day long and be doing X number of posts on LinkedIn, X number of posts on Facebook, and X number of posts on so forth and so on. Okay, you just don't have any time to do hardly anything. Somehow in that, you're supposed to have work-life balance. Make sure you're doing this with your family and doing this with work, and you're supposed to be playing. So you got to join a darts league or some whatever the heck. Okay. Mhm. And then there's, the other area where I see this is in a lot of fitness pages. You should be working out, 5 days a week or 6 days a week. Some people boasting they never take a rest day, so forth and so on. Then you don't hear from them for a while, and or, gee, I injured this, or my shoulder needs surgery. Boy, I have a hard time with that. But anyway, that's what ends up happening. And so you have this non-rest type of idea. I can sleep when I'm dead. Yeah, well, guess what? When you don't sleep, you will be dead. Plain and simple. And work-life balance, well, maybe. Okay, I get it. So do we take a day of rest? And I'm here to tell you that a day of rest is not a bad thing to have happen. All right. And when I was a kid, guess what? On Sundays, you couldn't go to a store because none of them were open. And as much as that might be some churchianity going on there, okay, cool. I think the principle itself is a good one. So let's say you're working a 9 to 5. You might even be working retail or manufacturing or something like that. And if you're like me, you spent years reading something. Um, these are the things that you took to work and you read them during your breaks and your lunch times because you were wanting to build your own business. Okay, cool. So my practice was to take that last break of the day, go outside with my coffee cup, and do nothing. No reading, no phone. If there was sunshine, that was optimal. If you look at my Facebook page, every once in a while, you might just see a blue sky because that's what I was looking at on my break. And maybe I had to put on my hat and my sunglasses because sitting outside like that was inordinately bright. I got blue eyes and they don't like inordinately bright. So I was okay. But it was a beautiful day and I was doing nothing. That means I wasn't thinking about what I'm reading. I'm reading right now Polyvagal Safety and by Stephen Porges and Memory, Trauma and Memory by Peter Levine. I also have I'm reading Christina Baldwin's new book, The Beekeeper's Question. Really, really a good book. And I might have and sometimes I like reading a detective novel and I can buy those cheap, put them on a Kindle because I'll never read them again for the most part. They're just something to take my mind off of where I am and what I am doing, even if it's for just 15 minutes. So while I'm eating in the break room or next door at the coffee shop or whatever, I will start reading a fictional story, something that I don't care if I remember or not. Now, I happen to be tuning into Christina Baldwin's book because it's got some not only is her writing a little different, and I like it, it's quite nourishing, as she is, and so is her dad. But and so I have a little bit of a history of knowing her history, which makes the story even better. But there's this engagement quality that's a little higher. I know her as the author. Otherwise, I might just a detective series. Um, and there's quite a few of those. Elizabeth George's Linley series. And I don't, which require a little bit more thinking than some might. The Jack Reacher series by whoever he was. Say that too loud. I can't remember the guys. I've read quite a few of those, but those I don't need to remember those. There's things that if you read enough of them, you will remember. But the point here is I disengage. And then I can spend the rest of my lunchtime, let's say if you get an hour for lunch, reading something relative to, I could read a periodic journal relative to the work that I'm doing. And, or if you're in your own business or moving into your own business, there's, reading stuff relative to trauma healing and some of the areas that impacts, like the emotions. Then I've got books on building my own business. Okay, these, stuff that is relative to life and life happening for us on a regular basis, and having answers for that, or having somewhat of an informed opinion, because I'll never be an expert on dreams. I don't need to be. I am, however, really, really good at knowing how to live, because I don't just take a rest one day a week. I mean, yesterday I was not feeling all that well, and because I was up most of the night not feeling well, which amounted to nothing other than just being in pain. When I don't sleep, I don't go to work, because then my chances of an accident are much higher. That's just the way it is. And I don't like accidents. That's going to lead to more downtime rather than just a lost day. And so I just took care of myself, and really, you know what I ended up doing? Because I've been canceling all of my streaming services to do better things with my money. I said, okay, there's a couple of series I want to wrap up. One of them being Picard, because I've been following that series. I mean, I first saw Jean-Luc in the original version of Dune, where they blew everybody's eyes out, and they were doing Maud Dib, Maud Dib. There's one battle scene, and whoa, who's that bald guy running down the dune way over there? And sure enough, it's Patrick Stewart. And so I just kind of followed that career, and then they did Star Trek Next Generation, and they finally just ended the one with Patrick Stewart. You'll have to watch that series to see what's next. And I'm like, oh my God. My heart was around this thing ending, and so I took my time getting to the end. And even though that crew of the Next Generation will be gone, and it's fascinating, a little bit of sadness around that. They were all good actors, I think, in some regards. They got better over time. But anyway, it's TV. All right. So, okay. So I finished watching some of those. I fell asleep when I wanted to, and just let that happen. I did a lot of reading. So I tried to do nothing. On Sundays now, I tried to do mostly nothing. So the workout will be today, or as much as possible. I might squeeze that in tomorrow. But considering self-care, okay, I get up in the morning and eat breakfast right away. And well, actually, I do ab exercises first, then I eat breakfast. Then I come up here and I'll either do yoga, and I sketch this out elsewhere, or I'll do some stretching. I alternate. And Qigong on Sundays. And that's all self-care stuff, right? Well, your day should be entirely self-care. Excuse me, entirely self-care. Everything you do should be about taking care of you. Everything. And throughout your day, you should be, if you find that you're getting stressed, and so what happens for me is, okay, I'm being stressed. I'm going to take care of myself somehow, some way. But if my boss has a burr up his saddle, that's not my problem. Even if it's me, that's still his problem. Now, if I've done something that just cost the company $20,000, okay, maybe not so much. You know what? Mistakes happen. We make mistakes. In taking care of myself, my rest day, I mean, if my sister calls or my brother calls or something else goes on that takes up my rest day time, I might sacrifice the day because I have learned to take rest throughout the day. I have learned to do things that ease the stress of living, and part of that includes raising the threshold of what actually causes stress. That's what I teach people how to do because it's neurophysiological and it can happen, so that I'm always in this zone of safety and social engagement. Happiness, I'll use the word contentment here. Because when I'm doing the day job, I'm content. I'm not necessarily happy. When I'm seeing all the lettuce heads in a row or something like that, that makes me content. Does that make me happy? Nah. When I'm with a client and they go, God, they get that aha, that makes me happy. That makes me happy because there's nothing like that. Now, anyway, so learn to take your rest. Don't make it rigid. And that's why I say, as we start out maybe with taking a day or part of a day. And then we learn to shift our schedule around so that we end up taking a day. But because life never conforms to our human rigidities. I can look outside right now and it's mostly overcast. It's not raining. But okay. Meh. I anticipated a sunny day. I planned around a sunny day, and this is what I got. What am I going to do about that? Get upset? Really? Okay. The weather does not care about my human plans or anything like that. So I could either get upset and get stressed out about it, or I could change my plans. There needs to be a flexibility, and learning to come into that place of flexibility is what it means to come to a place of rest. I can do that from a place of rest, being in, oh, 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 oh. Nope, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do this. All right. Here we see the stress cycles. When I was just talking to you about safety and social engagement, that's this green zone. When you've healed and learning how to rest does take some healing, but I'm seeing this from the perspective of coming out of trauma into living extraordinarily, human living, that we can come into this place of rest. These are your stress zones. This is what I would call distress and not eustress. So if I'm at the last play of the Super Bowl and I'm down 3 points and I'm trying to score, okay, and I got one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in history, who can cross those 3 feet, probably dragging 4 or 5 guys with him. And the coach calls for a pass play. And now we're getting lined up, and the quarterback's job is to read all this stuff going on the other side to determine whether or not the call from the sidelines was the good call, right call. Okay, there's a lot of stress. Eustress, because those guys in the end zone who are trying to stop you from going just 3 feet are like, wow, okay, if we stop them, we win. If we don't, we lose. It's just a game. But still, everybody in the world is watching you, or a good chunk of them. And that's that kind of competitive type of thing. And that's good, but it's still a stress response. And that's kind of what this wiggly line right down here is. Otherwise, we go home, game's over. Do we care? Because what's greater value is the connections with the people I'm with, that I might be watching the game with, or that I'll be talking to on the phone, or the people that I live with day in and day out, as opposed to this one game every year. I mean, the World Series just ended. I didn't watch a minute of it, and I'm more of a baseball fan. All right. I have less care when these multi-million dollar franchises are duking it out for who's the best. It's more like, who did you buy to get there? So, anyway, this day of rest, this time of rest, this capability of getting out of these, that as you heal, you deactivate and you come to live down here. That's what it means to rest. And there will be things in your life, because you don't get rid of the stress response, that will bump you up to here. Then you come down. So, because this is really the cycle. And I would honestly say that that cycle probably goes more like that. Doesn't quite get up to the freeze thing. I mean, when you get into freeze, that's a real serious situation. And or you've been in this cycle for so long that it doesn't take much to bring about freeze. That's the thing. We've been out of equilibrium for so long that this neural system of ours has, by and large, forgot that this exists. And so the brain rewires around this being normal. But once you begin the deactivation process, it raises that threshold so that getting up into these zones requires much more of an actual threat, because this zone is so big. That is what it feels like. And that's a wonderful thing. So even if a day of rest is too dogmatic, learn to take those times of rest. If you need to move your body, get up and move your body. Stretch it out, because we all know that, we've all heard by now, how much sitting is not good for us. As I'm sitting here, but I get up at the hour and I will stretch out, make sure my hips are straight. I might go up and down the stairs a couple of times, just because gets the heart going again, gets the legs, the hips, all that kind of stuff. I've got kettlebells behind me. I can, do a few things with the iron cross. Yeah, I could do that with my shirt on. But all it's doing is making these muscles wake up that I'm otherwise not using, which means my metabolism wants to get, cranked up just a wee bit. And breathing. You never go wrong with breathing. I've covered it here how many times? Inhale. Exhale twice as long, like you're blowing out candles. See, if you're a trumpet player, you might be thinking, there is some legitimacy to that. But regardless, famous trumpet players who, yeah, they exist. There are some, though, that, and there's where, yeah, control, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, inhale full, exhale twice as long. Always be doing that. Always. No matter what your day is, no matter what your work is. Take that rest. Give yourself that rest. And I thought about it today that in the course that I'm working, I in the 18th week, I just said, we're going to rest. We're just going to just tremor. I'm not going to jibber jabber your brains out. Because when you're trauma healing, we tend to then really focus on that a lot. And even though the focus in my program is not about focusing on my trauma symptoms, my worst events, we don't even go there. We're focusing on life signs. We're focusing on life practices, stuff that have to deal with cognitions and emotions and social relationships, just relationships in general. And then eventually we get into talking about spiritual stuff. Okay, those kinds of practices that don't require necessarily looking at, talking about, or even remembering the stuff. That's just a better focus. We still want to take the rest. That's what it means to have fun. Go out, taking a ball game, hoop and holler. And my last ball game with my girlfriend, we went out and it was fun being with somebody who could make noise. It was fun being with somebody who kind of had a sense of what was going on, but she enjoyed it, and that was what mattered. I was the one making the noise just before the opposing pitcher would throw, nice and quiet in the stadium. I'd yell, woo-ha! And okay, that sounds all okay in here, like I'm making noise. By the time it gets to him, what's he doing? Hopefully, even though they lost, was that because of me? Well, anyway, they lost the game, but he's focused on the catcher's mitt. That's what a pitcher's supposed to do, because the catcher told him what to throw. And he might be thinking, no, this batter, and anyway, I could go into that story, but I won't. But it was a thing of resting, just taking the time to do something that's fun, out of the ordinary. Do that throughout the day. Do that once a week. Come to that place of social engagement and safety as often as you can. All right, now I've repeated myself probably 18 million times. Repetition is a good thing at times for learning lessons. Now, go rest. Bye.